Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all of you. My name is Dr. Shubhda Chaudhary and I'm the founder of Middle East Insights platform. Our platform is a volunteer-driven platform which has participants, members, volunteers from South Asia, from Middle East, from Europe, and from different parts of the world. So the entire idea today of this session is to talk about Syria's Druze. Specifically in the South Asian context, we don't know much about the Druze identity, who the Druze are, why are they important. So this lecture is very essential. The whole title is Syria's Druze, Seeking a Place in a Changing Nation, Navigating Pressures from the Government and Israel. So for that, and talking specifically about Druze history, we have a very proclaimed, acclaimed speaker with us. And we are genuinely very, very empowered for the privilege of his time. His brief introduction is as follows. Said Abou Zaki sir is a dedicated scholar and educator specializing in Arab and Middle Eastern history, Islamic studies and cultural thought. With over 15 years of university teaching experience, he currently serves as an instructor at Lebanese American University, where he teaches courses on Lebanese and Arab history, cultural studies, and ethics. He has also taught at American University of Beirut, Phoenicia University, and Institut Français du Proche-Orient. It was French. I'm sorry to the French for not pronouncing it properly. Mr. Abou Zaki holds a master's degree in Arab and Middle Eastern history from American University of Beirut and is a PhD scholar in history at St. Joseph University. His research focuses on the socio-religious history of Druze community with multiple peer-reviewed publications in the field. I would request all of you to go to his LinkedIn page also, because a 3-part series of his interview has been published and it is very detailed. I actually took notes from it. So he also has a background in macroeconomic research and editorial writing along with his academic work. In December 2024, Mr. Abou Zaki published a groundbreaking bilingual article titled The Religious Attitude of the Druze Towards Violence, a study based on oral sources, in the Druze Studies Journal, offering a rare and insightful analysis of Druze ethical and political thought grounded in community testimony and primary sources on the history of Lebanon. The article received exceptional reception worldwide after only 4 months of its publication. He is fluent in Arabic and English. He brings a nuanced and deeply contextualized perspective to discussions of Druze identity, political affairs, religious influence, particularly in the context of Syria's evolving landscape. So with this, sir, thank you so much for endowing your presence to us. And how, like if we now scale to today, when we talk about the Syrian Druze, what was their condition when the Arab uprising started in Syria in 2011? And how was the Bashar al-Assad's government in terms of their social contract with the Druze in Syria?
Yes, we move now to different
time frame.
Time and conceptual also, which is more contemporary. When the Syrian revolution is part of a bigger context, the Arab Spring. And till now, we don't know for sure whether the Arab Spring was a spontaneous reaction to political oppression and political exploitation of people in their countries by corrupt regimes, or it had to do with this plus a scheme behind it that also want to capitalize from or take advantage of this dissatisfaction, excessive dissatisfaction maybe with the policies of these regimes and how they treat their people and so on. And so Syria came after Tunisia and Egypt and Libya. And to a long time, Bashar al-Assad, the president, was thought to be like an exception because elsewhere the regimes fell. Now, what happened in 2011 is that when the Syrian revolt started, the Druze of the south, and usually these are like the center of focus in Syria, in Sweden, because they are the biggest in number, they decided that it's early to know the meaning of this revolution or the background of this revolution. So it might be really a patriotic revolution, but it might be also something else. So they decided to be like cautious, and they didn't take sides. However, something happened from the bottom, from the society. There is a strong patriotic tradition in the south because they identify with a historic leader in Syria, Sultan Pasha al-Atrash, and others, that they don't fight Syrians. And thus, many of the Druze in the south started to defect or refuse to join the army. There were conscription because the regime needed fighters to contain and to crush the rebels after it became militant, because at the beginning it was peaceful, but then it became armed revolt. So he needed manpower, he needed soldiers. And in the first 2 years, according to the statistics, 12,000 Druze young men refused to join military service under a clear principle that they refused to shed Syrian blood. Now, this had an impact on the regime. This limited his ability to deal with the revolution. But it was like you take sides in the most indirect and neutral way. They were not fighting with any of these sides. So they were not supporting the rebels against the regime, nor fighting with the regime against the rebels. But for sure, they were weakening the regime.
How did they manage to protect themselves when, in this case?
Yes, of course, as a result of this, the regime at the beginning, wanting not to open or trying to prevent another front, internal fight with the Druze, he tried to use his traditional tools, for example, partisans, Druze partisans in Sweden, Ba'ath partisans, or even like influence or pressure religious authorities. But then it became clear that these are not working, and they started to apply military measures, capturing those who refused to join the army. And here they gave rise to a popular resistance. One famous group called Mashayikh al-Karama, established towards the end of 2013, roughly after 2 years, by a member of the community in Sweden called Sheikh Wahid al-Balous, and they quickly grew into an organized militia that declared two main aims for their armed resistance or for their military work. First of all, protect the Druze young men who refused to join the army from being captured and persecuted by the regime, and also protect the Druze region from possible militant attacks, especially that after like less than 2 years of the armed revolt, Islamic militant, extremist Islamic militants started to pop up in Syria, to rise. And now these have clear agenda when it comes to all who is not like them, not necessarily just Druze. Even among the Sunnis, they might have a category that they fight. So these two aims, and he quickly organized a very effective resistance that successfully repelled one of the militant attacks on Suwaida in 2014, even when they found out or suspected that during that attack there were betrayal from the regime itself, from the Syrian regime. And then they also started blocking the regime's attempt to capture people by trying to neutralize any of these checkpoints and that the regime establishes to capture Druze young men. But tragically, in September 2015, the regime assassinated Wahid al-Balous and his close circle in a very brutal way. In a explosive, and then also they tried even to harm the community by also having another explosion on the entrance of the hospital where he was supposed to be taken, his body was supposed to be taken, killing civilians. This was like the first red light. The regime was trying to tell the Druze that you should change course. It's not working like what you wish it to be. You should be clear, either with us or with the rest. The Druze didn't want to, and Syria didn't want to see this red light, and they continued in the same way as before. And by the time the end of the revolution, it's at the first 2 years, 12,000 refused to join the army. The estimates at the end is beyond 60,000, which is a whole army. It's that this was something important to the survival of the regime is clear. The regime, after 2-3 years, needed foreigners, so he started importing mercenaries. A proof that this was effective in weakening the regime. So this was the initial reaction, and one of the reasons why they didn't join also is not just that they don't want to enter a civil war, is that they don't see where it's heading. So you enter a war and you don't know where it's heading. Especially that the resistance became many resistances. There were Islamic extremist groups, there were secular groups, there were nationalist groups, there were Kurds. It was not that clear. However, the regime was always pressuring them. For example, in 2018, the regime designed an Islamic militant attack at the Suwaida, from the east. And he used Daesh for this. He transported Daesh to the eastern desert, which is at the border of Suwaida from the east, and allowed them to control the region, and then pulled out the army. And they attacked. And they attacked civilians, sleeping in their houses in the eastern borders of the province of Suwaida. And beyond 240 people were killed, Druze were killed. More than half of them were civilians. And there were tens also abducted. And it took time, months, for their return. And how the regime dealt with it, he summoned Druze and told them, that is the cost of you not joining the army. Clearly. He didn't hide it. But he didn't do it in his own hands.
Yeah,
He
yeah,
allowed,
yes, yeah.
yeah,
It's the entire when it comes to Bashar al-Assad, there is this entire narrative which is also about defending him. That look, there were mercenaries from 80, 90 different countries who were involved in Syria from day one. He was not acting; it was his younger brother Maher al-Assad who was acting in terms of intelligence and politics. Then there is a way of saying that it was the Israeli pressure or the pressure of the ISIS, or them saying that no, the Alawites in the army were working on their own ethnic rivalry instead of getting orders directly from him.
one point in the Levant, Bilad Sham, there are multiple ethnicities, but the biggest ethnicity is Arab. In Syria, the biggest ethnicity is Arab. Also, the only exceptions are like in the east, there is Kurds, 9%, and that's it. If we can assume Syriacs, but these are also Christian Syriacs, a very small minority. So the majority is Arabs. Arab. The Alawites are Arabs. The Druze are Arabs. Sunnis are Arabs. Shiites are Arabs. But the Kurds also are Sunnis and Shia, and others also, other religions. So it's not quite ethnicity, rather than the sectarian divisions.
Yeah.
Just to make this clear for the students and the audience. What I know is that the personality of Bashar al-Assad makes it clear that he had always the first word, or the last word, not the first, the last word. It's more about what he decides rather than what others decides, even his brother, Mah. And it was clear there were a regime, dynastic regime, that is it's Alawite, but it's also about the Assad family. So it's not like generally Alawites, because at the beginning of the establishing this regime was the result of a military coup against the founders of the Ba'ath party in Syria. This is very important. In 1966, 3 captains in the army made a military coup against, they are Ba'athist, and they made the military coup against the rule of the founders who are Ba'athist. Their party, the founders of their party. 2 of them were Alawites and 1 of them was Druze. Among the two were Hafd al-Assad and Salah Jdid. And the Druze was Salim Khatun. Now, once they finished with the founding fathers of the Ba'ath, they excluded the Druze captain, the Druze officer, Salim Khatun, and they started to strengthen the Alawite presence in the army. Now, in the early 70s, Hafd al-Assad also pushed out the Alawi, Salah Jdid, and it became the Assad family's rule. So it's not like broadly Alawite. And then, of course, he presented himself as the protector of the Alawites and the protector of Alawite rule in Syria, not just protector of the Alawite. So, yeah, he, of course, benefited from the Alawite support, but it was a single family rule.
No, that is true. I agree that he had the last word, especially when he left for Moscow. Yeah. And Maher al-Assad was like, where is he? And the wife is putting status supporting the new party on Instagram because she's offended that Maher and they were not told about leaving for Moscow. So it can be true. The next question, sir, is that how does Israel, because Druze population in Israel is also...
Let me just, Mrs. Let me just conclude something about the first part.
Yeah.
the important phase of the Druze reaction to the Syrian revolt is when all other revolts stalled or like crested. The Suwaida witnessed an uprising in 2023, which was purely social in roots, but it also had a clear political agenda, changing the regime. This was surprising to many Syrians and outside Syria, and that's why currently, and it stayed until the regime fell, and they had also contributed a lot to the fall of the regime because they neutralized the south of Syria, and that's why today this 1 year and a half phase of the revolution in Sweden, they insist that they had a very strong, or they played a very strong part in ending the regime, and thus they should also have a clear and real say in in establishing the new regime. And they want effective participation. So the last phase was so important. And also it witnessed the rise of the political leadership of Sheikh Hikmat al-Hajari, the leading Sheikh Aql there, the leading spiritual leader there, as not just a spiritual leader, but also a sort of patriarchal figure that is supposed to protect the political rights and well-being and existence of the Druze of Syria. So that phase is so important. The last phase, the last 1.5 years or so, before
definitely.
the fall of the regime.
No, definitely. That is something which is also quite crucial when it comes to how now Israel is trying to play the card in terms of how they want to, on one hand, Netanyahu says that he is going to, though in the news it is that IDF is 10 kilometers or 12 kilometers away from Damascus. I think they're under Damascus. But the point is that how does the Druze population look at Israel? Because Netanyahu is using the Druze card for intruding into the sovereignty of the country.
Yes. Okay. As I mentioned at the beginning, there is a Druze community in northern Palestine, which is today the state of Israel. And there, the Druze there has their own spiritual leader, that is a spiritual leader that has formal recognition, called Sheikh Muwaffaq Tarif. Now, Sheikh Muwaffaq Tarif has strong communal bonds with and affinity with Druze in general. So he, throughout the years of the civil war in Syria, 14 years, the economy was continuously degrading or falling out, and the people ability to survive, have sustenance, also was getting harder and harder. So he tried to provide economic assistance, in-kind assistance to the Druze of humanitarian assistance in that sense to the Druze of Syria, southern Syria. Now, to a long period of time, that was the case. Now, this is what Tarif was doing. Israel, since Tarif is somehow one of the religious authorities in Israel, they can, like, in a way, consider or speak out on his behalf. They think that, and thus, whenever they see it's to their benefit, they would go and say, well, yeah, we also would protect the Druze because Muwaffaq Tarif Sheikh Muwaffaq wants to protect the Druze. We are ready to protect them by our army. But I doubt that Sheikh Muwaffaq Tarif would have in mind literally this thing. What he had in mind is that if they needed, for example, it's common in his Druze history that they would go and fight with them. The Druze of Israel or Palestine, North Palestine, would go and fight, let's say, with the Druze of Syria if there is a need for fighters. But Israel want to take advantage of this situation, the fears, the anxieties of the minorities in Syria, and they are realistic anxieties or fears, to take a role and impose itself on the Syrian crisis or in the Syrian question. I give an example of how it's a matter of interest. When Al-Nusra, which is the organization of the current president of Syria, Shara, he was Abu Muhammad Julani, he's the leader of the Nusra, was attacking the Druze village of Hadar at the borders of Israel. Israel was opening the hospitals for the Islamic militants that are injured to be cured in their hospitals. One of the main and largest attack on the village that was not protected by the Syrian army, but by the villagers themselves, the Druze villagers, came from a military apparatus on the Jabal al-Sheikh, the mountain there, that is to the west of the village. They saw the fighters coming from the Israeli barracks there. So if you take this into consideration, would you still believe that they care about the Druze? But that's the Druze village, and those militants were going to kill Druze Syrians. It's for Israel. It's a matter of interest. That's it.
That is
nothing
it's
else.
Just a Druze guide. It's just the Druze guide. The question that you pointed out also, or the fact that you pointed out, was that the Druze population also, few quarters of it is near in Idlib, and when HTS was growing, no one has till now. When HTS Hayat al-Sham was growing from say 2020 to 2024. Or even before that, there is no evidence or data collection of crimes against humanity done within Idlib by HTS.
Well, okay, HTS is at Sham, something like this, right?
Hayat al-Sham, yeah.
Yeah, but there's the okay. Yes. In 2015, in a Druze village called Qalb Lawzi, one of those villages in Idlib, the 18 Druze villages in Idlib, a Nusra Tunisian fighter gave himself the right to take a home of one of the villagers by accusing him that he is loyal to the regime. The Druze villager tried to defend his home. He was shot dead with his family. And a sort of a battle, but it was uneven battle. The Druze had their hunting, probably shotguns, and the others had machine guns. 23 civilians died, Druze civilians died in this massacre in Qalb Lawzi. And it all began because one of the Tunisian members of the Nusra wanted to simply take over a house. So this was a shock to the Druze community, and this made them so apprehensive and cautious of what those Islamic militants are hiding if they ever control Syria. And that's why till now the Druze leadership are saying to the regime, the new regime, you should prove to us on the ground, not by words. What you are saying seems fine, but we have this history with you in the past 10 years, not long history. In the past 10 years, we have this bloodshed. You attacked Hadar. There is a massacre by the Nusra in Qalb Lawzi. The Nusra attacked Suwaida in 2014. You are asking us to trust you? Fine. We are ready to turn the page, but show us on the ground by real actions that you have changed. And he's not ready to give that much time, the regime.
One doesn't know the longevity of Jalani.
Yeah, right.
One doesn't know how long he will be allowed to stay in power.
Yeah, maybe. But you know what? There is a problem today in social media, in journals, in news platforms, that most often we see a very short-term memory. Most of these events are not highlighted to explain why people are taking these decisions, why the Druze of South taking these decisions. Not just that, there is also, I can go further. The Druze communal memory has many reasons to doubt, or at least to be cautious. For example, when we talked about North Syria, even many Druze don't know that Druze presence there was so strong. Recent history. The main blow to this presence came in 1811, when there were a campaign of massacring and persecution by the Ottomans and the Sunnis in the region, and thus the presence there shrank to only 18 villages. But the Druze villages were until the borders of modern-day Turkey. It's a famous ancient city called Antakya. So that's huge, and that's why in the Druze community there is a big family that most of its members do not really relate, called Halabi. Why they have this name? Just because during 1811 they had to flee their villages in hundreds, and the Druze of Lebanon went to escort them safely to Mount Lebanon, to Suwaida, and even to Palestine. And now you have Halabi all over the place, hundreds, but they are not really related, just because they came from that region. And this is like not less than, a bit more than 200 years. So they have their own reasons to say, well, yeah, we are ready to open a new page. Give us time and prove to us your good intentions, and that you are really now a new person and a different leader.
No, if you need a literary or rational interpretation of Jalani, both are difficult and both will not fetch any result in the sense of the chameleon that he is. He changes colors according to time and space.
Yeah. Look, it happens sometimes that when you acquire power, you are ready to change a lot to retain power. Let me give you an example from history. The Abbasid caliphs. The Abbasid Caliphate came to existence because of a Shiite revolt in 747. Once the Abbasid claimed power, the first thing they do to exterminate the Umayyads. But then what they did is start to persecute the Alawites, the leaders of the Shiites. And they started taking steps away from the Shiite tradition. One of the things they done was they found a convenient platform or a convenient ideology in Mu'tazili thought, since it was mentioned. And they tried it, and they tried to impose it for decades. But then gradually, even after they found that Mu'tazili thought is not that popular, what they did, they left Shi'ism at the beginning, then they left Mu'tazili, and they said, well, what's most of our population belief is mainstream Sunni Islam. Let's just regularize that. And it was the Abbasid who decided that Sunni Islam should have only 4 schools. And it was a later caliph. The earlier caliph persecuted some of these, the founders of these schools. For example, Ahmad ibn Hanbal was imprisoned by Abbasid caliph at the time. So you see these things happen, even in an Islamic context. So we don't know. Maybe if he survived the beginnings, the beginnings are hard. Ahmed Shara might transform himself into a modern leader, and maybe just to keep power. We don't know. We have to wait. But of course, the fact that he comes from this Islamic militant group as a leader, and it's connected to the Qaeda, and it has this Salafi thought, which has very exclusive definition of Islam. Of course, he has to do a lot of effort to convince people.
Indeed, but he is when he is making his own brother the General Secretariat head, Meher al-Shara, when he is imposing Islamic rule in the constitution, all of that, it is questionable. Also, Shara is just the body. The soul is a deeper state and intelligence that is just taking over the control of. There's a massive.
Now, Mr. Trump is telling us that it's Turkey, right? Trump is continuously.
And he really likes Erdogan, and he says that in front of Netanyahu.
And it's realistic because the Nusra, or Hayat Tahrir Sham, this is the name, thrived in the north under the protection of Turkey. Or with the support of Turkey. So the Turkish influence is so clear. And this has a reason, because many Muslims considered that the last caliphate was what? The Ottoman Caliphate. So they have like emotional attachment to Turkey because it had the last caliphate. Although, again, if we talk history, the Turks cannot become caliphs. In the first maybe 700, 800 years of Islam, there were a consensus. It was like all Muslims believe and accept the fact that only an Arab from Quraysh can become a caliph. This was like, it was not a controversy between Sunnis and Shia. Only the Ottomans had dared to break this tradition. Previous Turks and previous Persians who rose and even controlled the Arab Caliphate, like the Buyids, Buwayhiyin of Persia, like the Seljuks, couldn't do this. They kept the Caliph and took another title, Sultan, for example, or the Persian Buyids, Shahin Shah, King of Kings, but not Caliph. Only the Ottomans did it, and later, not at the beginning. There is a reason why they were able to do it, but that's beyond the scope of this webinar. But that made or explains why would someone like Julani find it fine to identify or to get support from Turkey. Now, on the ideological level, Erdogan and Julani belong somehow to the same school, which is political Islam.
But in Turkey itself, the situation is so. Social media has given some peek into what is happening, the level of socio-economic protests that are happening against Erdogan. So Erdogan himself has a very unpredictable support base currently.
So far, he proved himself to be a good survivalist. Okay, let me to keep to our topic. Let me tell you what would decide, in my analysis, the future of this new regime. if America decided that Turkey should be like, or let's talk Trump language. If Trump accepted that he would like sign the contract of Syria to Turkey, then there is a good chance that Ahmed Shara would survive. And especially if the Arabs were fine with this. Now, but that's not the whole thing. To survive, he also had to deal with his internal problems. And his internal problems are not a few. The Kurds are so clear that they want a federal system. The Kurds are clear that they want a say in forming the constitution. They don't want to be receptive to the someone writes a constitution, impose it on them. The Druze also are saying that they don't necessarily want federalism, but they want decentralization. They want sort of autonomy, administrative autonomy, and this is in fact a historic theme or a recurrent theme in the history of the Druze of the Levant. In all their regions, and in Syria and Lebanon, they always strive for autonomy because they feel safer and they like to be governed by their own people, especially because of the not always friendly environment, given that there were always these extremist tendencies in some militant groups, even scholars, in the Levant, Muslim scholars. So they are talking about decentralization, which is the regime is ready to think about more or to examine more than federalism. But these are two main problems. Then the Alawites also want to see how they will be integrated into the new regime. They also want the rights, and it's not easy. I'm following up what's going on in Syria on the internet. You know that there is like something going on. There are like religious generals or da'i, they call it in Islam, and there is those who take care of mosques. They have an extremist rhetoric against many of the communities of Syria, and this is happening while Shara is in Damascus trying to rule. So how he can, or how will he be able to control these voices? Will he be able to contain their influence on young men so that he also won't be, he won't end up forced to fight Islamic militant groups as a state? Because maybe it will happen that he will be forced to deal with extremist groups that do not accept his changes, didn't accept his changes, and want to continue the same way they were when the regime was still there. So it's inside. There is a big challenge, beside, of course, the economic challenge.
Yeah.
So
I think he will be disposed of if he becomes a liability, like most of the dictators or leaders have been in the past, by forces or intelligence or deeper military industrial complex that is not easily understood.
Yes, Syria today is like the boiling pot of so many interests. Yani, it has like a strategic significance that is so huge that so many big countries and lesser countries have interest in Syria, and which interest would, or whose interest would prevail, that's a question. And always Syria had a strategic significance. Of course, because of its location, the traditional trade routes pass through Syria, and it has oil and gas, and so and who knows what else? Maybe the Americans know more about what is there in Syria that we don't know. But we have to see. We have to see. We have to see how it unfolds. We have to see. And the Russians were. It was surprising how the Russians are, like, simply pulling out of Syria. It seems like probably because they are overwhelmed by the Ukrainian problem. They didn't resist a lot. They didn't try to grasp what they gained in Syria. They gained strategic places. They had military bases and an ally. This quickly changed, and they allowed it to happen. It's still not known why.
Yeah, but it on one hand, it is, yes, that the Russia-Ukraine conflict is too much on the plate. But at the other hand, few analysts have told me that, for example, they give Ahmad al-Sharra 1 year to see, like 1 year to see the longevity of if he is able to continue or not. The second is also that they have explained that there was this demarcation that during the 14 years, the boots on the ground in the sense of intelligence, military, and also the army of Bashar al-Assad, there were a lot of support from Hezbollah and from Iran on boots on the ground. The airspace was taken over by the Russians in terms of supporting the Assad government. Now, what happened was there was internal conflict within now the Iranians and the Hezbollah and the Russians, because it's not homogeneous, all of them. So internal divisions of different forms of social status, power, finance, and funding, and so many other things. And who controls what? And all of them are in a foreign territory. So one of the reasons was also the tiredness of 14 years. The tiredness. Like,
look. Let me just explain something here. One of the things that might work to the advantage of Ahmad al-Sharra is that, and this might explain why Trump is fine with Turkey having the backstage work in Syria and have clear influence, is Trump wants to keep Iran within its borders. And Syria was strategically so important to Iran because what they called the Shiite crescent. Iran, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon. And this brings Iran to the Mediterranean. This brings Iran to the borders of Israel. This brings Iran also to the oil in Syria. And all these to the Americans are disturbing. Now, they find in a regime that has strong Sunni base and ideology that would not accept Iranian presence as a good way to keep Iranians away. So instead of they fighting to keep Iran, Europeans or Israeli, he would be doing the job for them, for his own convictions, and probably for the stability of Syria. It's fine. It might be something needed for Syria, but the powers think of their plans and interests. So maybe they're like to the advantage of Ahmad al-Sharra, if he managed cleverly and effectively to present his regime as an acceptable modern regime, they might endorse him because of the services he can give to them, the strategic services, meaning, for example, keeping Iranians away, even not giving the Russians a lot of influence in Syria and on the Mediterranean. So he might be an asset.
Yeah,
to them strategically. And now, and it's up to him to do this quickly and convincingly.
Yeah. Let's see what is the reading of Masad al-Bounis and Steve Witkoff on STS and what they tell Trump about it. And the last question, sir, is by Anurag. He's asking that what is the fate of foreign mercenaries employed by STS, such as the Uyghur fighters from Turkestan Islamic Party? Will the new regime sacrifice the latter for better ties with China?
Okay. Well, there is a video on the internet where one of the members of the regime was celebrating the fall of Assad, the old regime, and among foreign fighters,
yes,
Islamic militants, and saying that all of them will be naturalized, meaning given the Syrian passport, Syrian citizenship, exactly. And this is a controversial point in Syria. Many don't want this to happen. And for example, let's go back to the Druze. The Druze would argue with the new regime is, you are accusing us of treason of our country. It's not us who brought foreign militants to kill Syrians. You did that. And we never did something like that. And if you think, and some Syrian activists online would say, who brought the Americans, the Kurds? Who brought the Turks, Sunnis in the north? Who brought Russia, the Alawites? Who the Druze brought? No one. When Netanyahu speaks that he wants to protect, it's not the Druze asking him. He is trying to impose himself on this case. But you are accusing us of something we didn't do, but you did. So go and check your history and then come and talk to us in this way. So one of the things I'm explaining to the media when in interviews is that to understand the stance of the Druze in Sweden, you have to understand their history and their sentiments. The sentiments. For example, when a Druze leader in Lebanon, Rijumlat, starts addressing them, do this, don't do this, don't forget your Arab roots, the strong Arab roots, your Islamic roots, and again, why you are talking to us like that? Fine, we respect that it's out of care, but who told you that we forgot this? So it's backfiring against Jumblat. And we have our dignity, we have our self-esteem. We don't accept that you to talk to us like this. Even from someone who they are fine that he's doing it out of care and not like others. And it's the same with the regime and others. You are talking to us. Our history is clear, even about their patriotic sentiments. The Druze did a lot to the Syrians. For example, between 2014 2016, they welcomed thousands of Syrians who were fleeing bombing from the regime, indiscriminate bombing of civilians. They came to their land in Sweden. They welcomed them, treated them properly for 2 years. Just to save their lives. They refused to join the service. So they did a lot. And then over and above this, now you come to accuse this. And it's really disturbing. And increasing their anxiety. Why you are doing this? Maybe you have plans. You want to demonize us for something. So it's important to understand the historical background, the sentiments, to understand the political stance in the south of Syria. That's so important.
It is. And how the geopolitics will emerge, especially with US-Iran talks, with the genocide in Palestine, with the protests also now emerging against Hamas, with the various kinds of vulnerability of Lebanon itself, how
Yes.
Israel is intervening,
Yes.
and Syria, and what is the new Middle East plan of Trump, the Abraham Accords Part 2, which he wants from
Yes.
Saudi. And
Yes.
there are so
You know that.
many
You
unknowns.
know. You know that even in Lebanon there is regime change.
Yes, yes, yes,
it's it's not as radical as what happened in Syria. It's not the result of a military takeover, although it's
yeah.
a result of military uh,
It is,
earthquake.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
but
Yeah,
there is a regime change, and I'm
yes,
talking now as an observer. I'm not, I don't belong to political parties, but as an observer, we have clear change, and we still do not know. Again, also this regime is under a trial or under probation,
yes,
like the Syrian regime. But of course, this regime has more legitimacy.
yes,
The Lebanese new regime is a constitutional regime. It's a legal regime. What Ahmed al-Shara also is not, or doesn't want the people to talk about, is that where from he gets his legitimacy. Only the fact that his militia took over Damascus. That's why he's assuming legitimacy. And the others are saying, well, look, but we were part of it. Especially the Druze. The Druze militias were the first to enter Damascus even before the HDS. And so this this is there is a complexity in understanding what's going on, but I'm not sure. Yeah, a year would be, if he survived a year, that means a lot. He would have done a job. But who knows how it will? It's unclear because so many questions are still unsettled. That we don't know how Gaza's war. We don't know how the settlement would be between Lebanon and Israel. There are voices saying that the war will return. Hopefully not, but who knows? There are many things that seem not that clear. And as a historian, I'm familiar with the fact that there's many times sudden disruption of the normal. Sudden disruption of the norm. For example, Al-Aqsa was a sudden disruption of the norm. No one was envisioning that thing to happen. Now, also how Israel reacted to it was a sudden disruption of the normal. And maybe we are heading now to more of these sudden disruptions. What Trump is doing is a
he's
disruption
a
of the
sudden
norm.
disruption every day.
Yeah.
So
And how these unfold, what would come out of it, probably Trump also cannot determine. It's something. Yeah.
For that, he needs to, travel. Instead of going to Saudi, he needs to travel to the conflict-torn areas and see how the situation is. Because in one of the interviews, he told that, looking at the table, he said, this table is the Middle East and the pen is Israel.
Yeah.
Now, that is
Yeah.
a very, I think that is also good in terms of making Americans understand. But it's a very simplistic way of explaining. Yeah. So with this, I would, we have taken double the amount of time that we requested from you. And
Fine.
One thing which I want to tell everyone, so when I was making the poster, in the introduction of Sir, I wrote that he has, expertise in Druze thought. And then he corrected me and he said Druze history. And
Okay.
I sat back and I thought about the meaning of the two words. And then I realized that we are going to have a lovely talk today.
Okay.
That was something, it was a very, very simple suggestion, but a very deep suggestion. And this podcast will be available in two parts. One
Okay.
will be only on the Druze history.
Okay.
And second will be on Syrian Druze.
Okay.
And I would request all of you to please find him on LinkedIn. It's very easy. Just type his name and you can see him. The same photo in the, like not the same photo, but you can see his image in the LinkedIn profile page. And do go through the 3 articles that interview pieces that were recently published. They are in Arabic, but they can be translated. Because
one of them is in both.
In both.
Okay. The most recent is bilingual. It's available English, Arabic.
Yeah. Okay. So because the one that was on valid jumlat, starting with that.
No, the one on Druze attitude towards violence, a study based on oral sources. This is bilingual.
Okay. So
it begins with the original Arabic text, and the translation we prepared for it follows.
Okay.
Yeah,
because my website translates immediately. So that is, so I don't know if it was. The meaning is lost.
Yeah. From my experience, all AI translations of religious texts from Arabic is not cannot be that faithful and strong, because Arabic language is so deep and philosophical, by the way.
Yes.
Very philosophical. There is a common theme in cultures, in Hinduism, in Buddhism, even in the Confucius, Chinese, Taoist, and Confucian thought, in Greek culture, and in Islam, of course, and monotheist religion in our region. Coming back to the origin, you will talk about the nirvana, coming back to the origin. For example, this coming back to the origin in Arabic language has like more than 10, 15 words in the Quran. All of them are authentic Arabic words that are used in diverse meanings, that have the same common meaning, coming back home. The most common or most known term but no one would think about it in this way is at-tawbah, repentance in English, right? In Arabic, repentance is tawbah, and tawbah is going back home. That's literal meaning of it. And of course, it should ring a bell in Hindu thought, Buddhist thought, right? That's a theme in the Bhagavad Gita. That's a theme in the Buddhist tradition. In Lao Tzu, Tao Te Ching, I find it everywhere. Now they have a lot of words. Even some of the names of the prophets can be translated the one who comes back home. So
no, I agree with
of
you.
Course, an AI translator won't catch any of these.
No, I agree. I had a very difficult experience with translation today from English to Hindi, in fact. So I agree with what you're saying. And but again, something is better than nothing. So in that way of thought, I would request all of you to find him on LinkedIn. Anurag, you can keep texting him questions. He will respond to you, I'm pretty sure. So read those 3 links that are there on his profile. And because every answer that he gives like every question that he gives answer to is a very detailed, like he names all the spiritual leaders, goes to the history of many accounts. And like, I did take notes today when I was going through it. So, but apart from that, thank you so much, sir, for this selfless service that you have done today. And
it's my pleasure. All I hope is that I was somehow informative and
you're
really
a brilliant storyteller.
Okay.
You're a very, very beautiful storyteller.
Okay, that's
And
good
it
to
is
hear.
very difficult for a historian to be also a good storyteller.
Maybe like teaching
Yes.
helped in this. In our part of the world, history is more about elective.
Yeah.
We have weak history departments. It's no more strong, and thus we are forced to teach uninterested students, and
In
thus you
our
need to
part of
find
the
a
world
way.
also.
Yeah, you need to find a way to them, to their interest, to the. So yes, probably this was very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very rare, and that will, something which will always keep you alive in the memories of others. So,
Nice to hear that.
thank you so much. And I will share with you the links when they're ready.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Anurag, you can be very happy. Okay. Good night.
Okay,
Bye. Bye. Thank you
bye.
everyone for joining. Bye.